Uduma, the land that loves the dead more than the living. In the heart of Africa, nestled between the rolling hills and dense forests, lay the village of Uduma. A place of lush greenery and fertile soil, Uduma was known far and wide for its unique tradition and extravagant celebration of the dead. The villagers believed that the spirits of the deceased could bring fortune or misfortune, and so they honored them with lavish funerals that rivaled royal ceremonies. Among the villagers, there was a young man named Kofi, known for his sharp mind and deep curiosity. He was different from his peers, who blindly followed traditions without question. Kofi often wondered why so much wealth and effort was spent on the dead when the living suffered from want and neglect. His thoughts, however, remained his own, for questioning the ways of Uduma was considered a grave offense. One fateful day, the village chief, Chief Amadi, passed away. His death sent the village into a frenzy. Preparations for his funeral began immediately, and no expense was spared. Gold ornaments, the finest silks, and an abundance of food and drink were amassed for the event. The villagers contributed more than they could afford, driven by the fear of incurring the wrath of the spirits. Kofi watched in silence as his mother handed over their last goat, the family's only source of milk, to the funeral committee. His father, frail and sickly, offered his cherished hoe, a tool he needed to till their land. The sight pained Kofi, but he knew better than to speak out. Instead, he decided to seek counsel from the wise old seer, Nana Mosi. Nana Mosi lived at the edge of the village, in a small hut surrounded by medicinal herbs and ancient relics. Her eyes, clouded with age, held the wisdom of countless generations. Kofi approached her with respect and explained his concerns. "Nana Mosi," he said, "why do we sacrifice so much for the dead while the living suffer?" Nana Mosi gazed at Kofi, her face inscrutable. "The spirits of our ancestors guide and protect us, young Kofi. But sometimes, traditions can cloud our judgment. There is a tale, long forgotten, that may offer you clarity." With that, she began to recount the story of Uduma's origins. Many moons ago, Uduma was a prosperous village under the rule of King Obasi, a wise and benevolent leader. The people flourished, for the land was bountiful and the harvest plentiful. But as the king aged, he became obsessed with the afterlife. He decreed that his funeral should be the grandest ever seen, believing that it would secure his place among the gods. When King Obasi died, the village was plunged into debt to fulfill his wishes. The people starved, fields lay fallow, and sickness spread. The lavish funeral brought no blessings, only hardship. In desperation, the villagers sought the help of a wandering sage, who revealed the king's folly. He warned that honoring the dead should never come at the expense of the living. To remind the villagers of this lesson, the sage placed a curse on Uduma. From that day, the village would be divided between those who lived in prosperity and those who suffered in poverty. The only way to break the curse was to balance respect for the dead with care for the living. Kofi listened intently, his heart heavy with the weight of the story. He knew what he had to do. With Nana Mosi's blessing, he called for a village meeting. The elders and villagers gathered, curious and skeptical. "Brothers and sisters," Kofi began, "we honor our dead, but at what cost? Look around you. Our children go hungry, our sick are unattended, and our fields are barren. We are cursed not by the spirits, but by our own actions. It is time to honor our ancestors in a way that also nurtures the living." His words stirred unease, but also thought. Kofi proposed a simpler funeral for Chief Amadi, one that respected the dead but spared the villagers from ruin. The elders, after much debate, agreed to try this new approach. Chief Amadi's funeral was a modest affair. There were no gold ornaments, no costly feasts. Instead, the villagers shared what they could afford, and the ceremony was filled with heartfelt songs and stories of the chief's life. To everyone's surprise, the spirits seemed pleased. The village began to prosper again, the curse lifted. Kofi's bravery and wisdom changed Uduma forever. The villagers learned to balance their traditions with compassion and practicality. And so, the land that once loved the dead more than the living found harmony, thriving in both the present and the past. The tale of Uduma spread far and wide, a lesson in wisdom and moderation. And Kofi, the boy who dared to question, became a legend, remembered for generations to come.